What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another how to build around this commander video, and we have yet another one from the new set Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Isshin 2 Heavens as 1, this 3-mana Mardu colored commander option, is a lot like Wolfgar that we received back in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. However, with that commander, it was just your creatures attacking. You have some more defensive options, they're pretty limited though. It's just nice that you have the flexibility if we're ever going to get other cards that work to benefit more of a defensive strategy. You can certainly explore that. But if a creature attacking would cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. To me, this is a much better commander option than Wolfgar. You have 3 colors to work with, and the commander itself is only 3 mana. Very flexible, the creature types are pretty solid, so you could go the tribal route for either humans or samurai. And that's the first thing that I want to look to build around Isshin with, and that is the samurai from this set, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. That's usually the go-to whenever I look to build around any commander, because the set the commander belongs to is usually going to find other support. That's just how new sets are created anyway. In addition to that, we're going to look to build around Isshin with other tribes. A lot of tribes have their own emphasis on attack triggers, so if you're able to get double attack triggers from certain tribes over others, you'll notice you get a lot more power. We have the goading strategy too. This could be lumped in with forced combat in general. Again, since this trigger applies to any creature if it attacks, we'll also get the benefit off of our opponent's creatures attacking. And then we have life drain as a strategy if we want to build around that. There are some creatures that make it easier for us to do this. We attack with them. Certain opponents or all of our opponents lose life. If we get double the triggers, we have a ton of life lost. And then we have Anthems. They're perfect for combat decks. This is going to be more of a combat-focused commander option. So if you have specific triggers that give +1/+1 until end of turn, it'll turn into +2/+2 until end of turn. We have, of course, tokens, which pairs up pretty nicely with Anthems. If you have any trigger that creates tokens, you get double tokens, essentially. We also have equipments to consider since we're building around this as more of a combat-focused deck. You will also get triggers off of certain equipments. Doubling those triggers will also be beneficial. And we do have dungeons. We have a few dungeon cards that I want to talk about because I think they're pretty cool, and getting to venture into the dungeon twice offers you a lot of abilities, a lot of rooms that you can enter and receive things like treasure tokens, card draw, scries. It's pretty cool. And then beyond that, I'll just talk about some good utility creatures, good ETBs, and attack triggers as well. Just explosive plays that will help you win more. So first thing I want to talk about, of course, we are looking at Kamigawa Neon Dynasty and the potential for Samurai Tribal. This is probably going to be the most powerful synergy, just human samurai. And we have the new card Norika Yamazaki, the poet, and we have Ryu, Storm's Edge. So Norika allows us to cast a target enchantment card from our graveyard, and Ryu gives us an extra combat phase if we attack alone with a samurai or warrior. So I like these two. This is what I was talking about. You'll have a lot of cards designed around a legendary creature, and that legendary creature, of course, being a commander option. It's no doubt my go-to for the first time building. Continuing on with the samurai synergy, we don't have a samurai, but we have one that does also offer us additional combats. And Godo Bandit Warlord is a pretty sweet one. You, of course, want to get it for the attack trigger. You'll get to attack more often with those other samurai. Even if we're ignoring the combo with Helm of the Host here, which will give you infinite combats, that is still a pretty solid attack trigger for all of your other samurai. Now, in addition to that, we have, of course, a lot of tribes that fall within Mardu colors, but the ones that I think have the best attack triggers, we're talking about dragons. Tyrant's Familiar, Siege Dragon, Drakuseth, Maw of Flames, all about dealing damage when they attack. Tyrant's Familiar deals 7 damage to a target creature defending player controls. Siege Dragon deals 2 damage to each creature without flying that player controls. And Drakuseth deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. Of course, getting any of these triggers twice, it means you're dealing more damage to creatures, dealing more damage to players, or even planeswalkers with that Drakuseth trigger. Now, it's going to be pretty hard to build a versatile dragon deck around a Mardu-colored commander. I think it would be much easier if you wanted to go the human route, but if you're just looking for the most explosive attack triggers, you will be browsing through the dragons. And of course, we can't go without mentioning the Eldrazi, because the Eldrazi have some of the best, if not the best, attack triggers ever made. And it's that one ability, Annihilator. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices a certain amount of permanence equal to the number next to Annihilator. So in Kozilek's case, if you get that trigger off with our commander out there, it'll be Annihilator 4 twice. Bane of Balaged's a little bit softer than that, they just have to exile 2 permanents they control. You get double that, then they have to exile 4. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger can be pretty brutal. Instead of just exiling the top 20 cards of their library, they will have to exile the top 40. I don't think these are super practical options, but yet another great tribe that you could decide to focus on if you want that power. If we're just going for building around a specific keyword, Goad is not a bad one. We don't have a ton of support for it yet. We have been getting some. Adventures in the Forgotten Realms gave us Vengeful Ancestor and Karazakar the Eye Tyrant. Vengeful Ancestor's trigger is pretty sweet. If you get to goad 2 target creatures instead of just 1 when it attacks, you'll help to enable the second part where whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller, because with our commander Isshin, that will also be doubled because it's whenever a creature attacks. So instead of just 1 damage to its controller, those goaded creatures are going to be dealing 2 damage. So it's like it was meant for the future commander option in Isshin. And same thing with Karazakar the Eye Tyrant. You will get the benefit off of both of these triggers. Whenever you attack a player, you tap target creature that player controls and you goad it. And whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose 1 life. Now that second one will only trigger once, since it's not individual creatures attacking that will trigger that, it's just an opponent attacking with anything, but still a creature attacking will technically trigger it, so you'll get to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Another strategy to build around is Life Drain. This can be pretty explosive, considering that if you double them, you're doubling the total amount of life lost. Mardu Shadow's Spear and Vicious Conquistador are essentially the same creature. Whenever they attack, each opponent loses 1 life, so you get the trigger off our commander. That's going to be each opponent loses 2 life. But seeing as beyond the early game, those aren't going to be too useful, we have something stronger like Brutal Horde Chief. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And it has a pretty cool activated ability of 5 mana. Creatures your opponents control block this turn if able, and you choose how those creatures block. So another great creature that was just meant for Isshin in the future. And then we have Calculating Lich, a card that doesn't see a ton of play, but for this commander option in Isshin, you're gonna love the trigger. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life. Because it applies to all creatures, it applies to the creatures that are attacking your opponents that you don't directly control. Meaning if you're all trying to kill the same player, Calculating Lich is going to add on some more life loss. But a strategy that I think I'm probably going to go for more than anything else would be the Anthem strategy. This has a ton of potential because we have a lot of enchantments, a lot of creatures that just sit on the field, and when we get these triggers, our creatures are going to be massive because of our commander's ability to double them. So Fervent Charge, Old School, Mardu Colored Enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Well, instead, if you have your commander out there, that's a whopping +4/+4. Any creature could be a token, anything. To get +4/+4 just for attacking, you can easily knock players out of the game. In Agris Kos Wojak Veteran, another older card. This is from the original Ravnica. When he attacks, attacking red creatures get +2 power, and attacking white creatures get +2 toughness until end of turn. Of course, works best if you have the most red creatures, but it's the same idea. You're giving a ton of power to some creatures and a ton of toughness to others. Culligan could also work for your dragon tribe focus if that's what you want to do. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, creatures you control get +1 power until end of turn. If you have at least 2 dragons out there, then suddenly you're cooking with gas. Gleam of Battle will offer something a little bit more permanent. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Of course, getting 2 +1/+1 counters won't give you as much power as something like Fervent Charge, but for your following turn, it'll just keep adding up. And to complement the Anthem strategy, I also like the token strategy. Handwire Garrison, Hero of Bladehold both have great attack triggers that will give you 2 1/1s that are tapped and attacking. Of course, instead of getting 2 1/1s for your trouble, you're getting 4, which is definitely worth it if you're focused on attacking as often as you can, getting those triggers. And Mardu Ascendancy is perfect for this strategy. Since all we're going to be doing is attacking, we get 1/1 red goblin creature tokens on the battlefield tapped and attacking as well. It only works for non-tokens, but that's still pretty powerful. Now we have a few equipments that I think would be great for this. and you should be looking to add a decent number of equipment since we are going to be attacking with some pretty valuable creatures. Sword of the Animist is a great setup card in general. I think you could play it in a ton of decks, not just ones that are focused on attacking, but if you get the attack trigger off, you're not just getting one basic land on the battlefield, you're also getting another one. Trepanation Blade is a great attack trigger. It's just not necessarily something super strong. It doesn't synergize with our strategy beyond just maybe milling more cards and offering our creature more power. Argentum Armor is where it's at though. If you get the trigger twice, you get to destroy 2 target permanents. If I ever had an issue with this card, it's how it's costed. Your creature does get +6/+6. I don't think it needed that. The equip cost being 6 is pretty expensive. So with this commander, I think you're probably getting your mana's worth. Another strategy that I don't expect a ton of people to fool around with is the dungeon strategy from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. No, you don't get to play all of the good Venture into the Dungeon cards. However, all of these pretty much have a pretty decent attack trigger. Triumphant Adventurer and Nadar Selfless Paladin especially. All you do is attack with them and you get to venture into the dungeon twice. Dungeons are great because you get treasure tokens, you occasionally get to scry, draw cards, create creature tokens. So if you can do this twice at a time, I think you're going to get through dungeons pretty quickly. And I think it goes without saying, but we've had a ton of awesome creatures with very strong attack triggers over the years. The Titan that has been reprinted a ton, and Sun Titan is still going to be solid in this deck, seeing as you can get back anything from your graveyard, mana value 3 or less, and do that twice. Grave Titan will offer you 4 creatures instead of just 2 with this commander, and Inferno Titan will give you 6 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. So all of these are great options. If you're really struggling to figure out how you're going to build around this commander, I definitely wouldn't feel bad treating these as placeholders. And there are a lot of other great attack triggers too. We have Alesha who smiles at death. For a short period of time, this was one of the most popular commander options. You will have to pay more mana with that trigger, but you will be able to bring back more creatures. Goldspan Dragon doesn't have the strongest attack trigger, but it has an attack trigger that's probably worth it. Instead of just getting 1 treasure token, you're getting a second. And Archon of Cruelty from Modern Horizons 2 has a pretty strong attack trigger. Target opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker discards a card and loses 3 life. You get to draw a card and gain 3 life. So if you get that additional trigger, that's a ton of value. Goes without saying that if your commander is pretty affordable and you have access to 3 colors and you're able to synergize with a ton of different strategies, you're probably looking at one of the stronger options in the whole set. So that's going to do it for this build around commander video. Let me know what you think about the newest set, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and as always, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Commander Void here, I will see you all next time.